try just breathing into them, which just means to bring your awareness to that spot and take a few breaths. And then you can just rest your mind on the sensation of your breath going in and out of your nose. Just at the very tip of your nose, you might notice a sensation. So now with a more settled mind, a mind that's more attentive to the present, try to remember why you came here this morning and set a positive intention, a positive motivation to use your time well. We're very busy, so we want to make sure we're very consciously choosing to use our time well. And in the Buddhist practice, we try to combine that motivation with the wish that it be of benefit, not only to ourselves, but that it ripple out to benefit others. So now we'll turn to the prayer book, which is the Gold Book. Turn to page 34. And we're going to recite the four immeasurables. And the four immeasurables are about four immeasurable minds. So it's the immeasurable mind of love, the immeasurable mind of compassion, the immeasurable mind of joy, and the immeasurable mind of equanimity. So, on page 34. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering.
May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred and enemies.
So by reciting the four immeasurables, it's a good reminder that just like me, everybody wants happiness and to be free of suffering. So it's just a little kickstart to remind ourselves that we're not alone in the pursuit of happiness. But we may not all be using the same methods to get there, and many of our methods won't get us there. We think they will, but it turns out we're wrong. So the thing that we've been talking about lately, we've been talking about for a couple of months probably, is how to communicate and maintain harmony. We all know how to communicate, but we don't always communicate and maintain harmony when we do it. So communication's quite a difficult skill. Whenever we're talking to someone else, whether it's one person or many people, you have the cultures of each individual person coming together. We can't read each other's minds, so we literally are just having to just wing it as far as hoping that our words actually communicate something to the other person. And this gets more complicated when you have generational differences between people. Young people don't use the same jargon as older people. Babies don't understand, toddlers don't understand words the same way teenagers do and adults do. You can have bosses talking to employees, so there's a power differential. Parents talking to children have a power differential. Strangers, they're coming from two different places. You have no clue where they're coming from at all, so that impacts our communication. Lovers have a different communication than people we find difficult, and sometimes our lover's the person we find difficult, so that adds a whole nother dimension. So we have all these differences, and then you have people who speak different languages, that their native language, we have that's quite common in this part of the country. So, so that along with the different language, you have different body language because of the different cultures. So everybody can be quite confused. You may think that you're saying something quite straightforward, quite easy to understand, and it's not because of these differences. So that's kind of where we are. So one of the things we've been talking about is how our own needs get in the way of our ability to communicate often, our self-interest in the outcome. Maybe we're angry when we're trying to communicate, never a good mix. So there are different things going on. We may want a certain outcome, and that's going to influence how we communicate. We may not even acknowledge there are other options or possibilities how to do something because we want it to happen in a particular way. So that's a problem. What else have we talked about as obstacles?
Listening, ego.
Listening. So we don't always listen to the other person. What are we doing instead? Well, we're not even going that far.
Ignoring.
Talking over them or thinking over them. We kind of hear part of what they say, and then we're already working on how we're going to respond. So we're not actually listening at all. So that's a big obstacle. And then you said the ego. This is that self-interested, self-centered mind that we have. We want to make sure we get what we want or what we think we need out of this conversation. So that can actually interfere because we're not open to what the other person is saying. And then there's fear. We might be afraid of what someone's going to tell us. Like when the boss says, I see you for a minute in my office? That's a good condition for panic to arise. So all of these factors get in the way of actually being able to communicate with each other, because it's not just our side of the conversation that has this going on. Everybody is having the same stuff come up. So, last week, or the week before, or whenever, since I'm not being very mindful about dates, we were talking about what kind of place do we need to come from when we're trying to communicate? What ideally is our circumstances, our state of mind? Anybody have a clue?
Compassion.
Well, compassion's one, but even before compassion,
The present state.
sort of being aware of the
Yeah.
present, you know, as opposed to be thinking about a million other things. It's hard to really listen. And when you're in the present state, what else would be helpful?
Equanimity,
Well, equanimity's good. And what do you mean by equanimity, Ron?
to know that we're really the same.
To know that we're really the same. That we all, in spite of all these cultural differences that appear, these two worlds colliding, that we all want to be happy and not have suffering. We all generally have the same kinds of basic needs of shelter and safety and food. One of the obstacles to being able to communicate well and listen well is going too fast, is rushing, not learning how to pause between someone else's words and your own words, not really pausing between your own words, you know, but just kind of blah, 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 as you've seen me do up here. So what we need to cultivate, according to the Buddha, is a calm state. The more calm our mind is, the better off we are, or better off, that's not what I'm trying to say, the better at communicating we can be. Because we'll actually listen, and then we can also see how they're responding to our words when we're speaking, you know, if we're calm and present. So how can we learn this skill? Because it's a skill to have I mean, when you just listen to your mind, what do you find?
Chaos.
Chaos, yakety yak 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 yak, yep, the spiral mind. How often are you in the present?
Not often.
Not often. We're usually somewhere else. You know? I was reading a description, Tenzin Palmo, who's a very senior Western Buddhist nun in the Tibetan tradition. Jetsuma is her title. It's sort of like Precious Lama, but don't quote me on that because I'm really not so good at Tibetan. But back in, I think she ordained in 1964, so it's been quite a while. And she's now trying to establish a nunnery for Tibetan nuns in a particular lineage so that they have the resources they need, so the lineage is not lost. In other words, there are not many people left who know the practices and can pass them down. But before she did that, she's the one who meditated for 12 years in a cave. And she had meditated for 3 more years at some other time, and so she's done a lot of meditation. And now her life is more about speaking engagements and raising money for this nunnery, which is very kind of her to do. Because I'm sure that's not, you know, her personal preference. But she was saying how she really likes tiramisu. And even though she's done a lot of practice, she also knows that, like, after her first bite of tiramisu, her second bite on generally is about the other tiramisus that she's had in the past and whether this one's better or this is good, da-da-da-da. And she entirely misses the rest of it, you know? She's not engaged with it. She's not experiencing it. It's now she's just caught in the past. Or maybe even planning for, let's go back to that place I really like their tiramisu in the future. And this is kind of what we do. You know, we might go, oh, when we have that first taste of something we like. And then we lose the thread. We don't stay with it. So we kind of miss living our lives. You know, we live the first moment of things, you know. But then we just create some story going on in our head, and that's actually what we're living. We're just listening to that, like somebody flipped a switch and a movie came up, and it's a great movie because we're the star, and we just zero in. And, you know, it's like everything else just sort of falls to the background, so we're not really interacting with each other anymore, even with our food, you know, we kind of just miss it. So the practice of meditation, single-pointed meditation in particular, and mindfulness helps us develop the habit of noticing what's going on in the mind now. Not reminiscing about the past or planning for the future. We do have to plan. Everybody always like, oh, but I have to plan. You know, yes, we do have to plan. But you can set a time to plan. Don't make it your whole life. You know, you almost can never fulfill your plan if all you're doing is planning in your mind the next moment, or later that day, or tomorrow, or New Year's. You know, this is what we do. So the practice of focusing on our breath for a few minutes really helps us learn how to stay present. And then we can relax our attention on the breath once we've kind of got that in a particular session, and just observe what's going on in the mind. Not follow it, as we usually do, as we're accustomed to doing, just observe it, just like you would at a movie. You know, where you step back, you know, you're sitting in the seats, and you're just watching this movie. So even though you might, you know, it's easy to get engaged in a movie. So this isn't like that. It's, you know, this is trying to just observe. So one example they give is like something like when you go sit on the bank of a river and you just observe the river. You know, you don't chase, you know, the log that comes along. You don't keep following. Once it's out of your view, you know, that's okay. You're just observing what's in front of you. And so in meditation, this type of meditation, you're trying to observe your awareness. And so what happens is, hopefully, is with practice, you're able to develop a certain amount of discipline to not getting engaged in your thoughts, you know, letting them just arise and pass, you know, not creating a story from it. And you start to be able to notice the spots, the gaps in between thoughts. What exists in the gaps between thoughts?
Silence. Calm, silence.
Awareness. All it is simple awareness. Thoughts are conceptions we're creating. But in between thoughts, there's still awareness. And that we're not very in tune with. And with that, with being able to bring our awareness to that gap in between thoughts, we become more aware of simple awareness. And simple awareness is powerful. It's where our serenity can be found. It's where we can start to really recognize that, you know, we live our lives as if, you know, we perceive our lives like the movie, you know, but in actuality, it's much closer to what the projector is doing, you know, those individual frames. Our existence is like that, you know, everything's impermanent, it rises, abides, and disintegrates. And if the physicists are correct, it's moment to moment. It's not year to year, it's constantly. Things rise,
and then disintegrate. So our actual existence is more like those individual frames, going really, really fast. So what having a calm mind allows you to do is to see those breaks in between the picture frames. And this gives us more control over our responses, our peace of mind, because this awareness always exists. So it's something we can rely upon. In Buddhism, we say the mind is non-physical. We don't think it's just a manifestation of chemicals and electricity, is that the right word? And the body. The brain is very important. It's the physical support for the mind, but it is not the mind. And we need this physical support when we're just ordinary beings in order to have, to be able to work with our minds. And so a human mind is particularly useful. You know, if you've got your faculties, it's, you know, this is a sophisticated brain. It's a sophisticated support, whereas a mosquito's brain is not a sophisticated support. So during a mosquito's life, they don't have really the opportunity to work on their mind. They don't have a good physical support for it. But according to Buddhism, they have the same kind of mind we have. They're just not able to access it because of their limited physical support. But when they're born again as a human someday down the road, you know, they'll have the same kind of superior physical support, and then they can work on their minds. This is why we want to use our time as, you know, with these kind of conditions well, because this is the prime time to do it. We have the good physical support, we've got teachings, we have the leisure to actually practice, or you couldn't be here on a Sunday, you know, so we have some opportunities. Any questions so far? No. Oh, you all got it. Okay. Well, then we'll just meditate the rest of the time. That's certainly easy for me to, at least in terms of what the content. So one of the things that this requires us to do is work on not being caught up in all of our sense awarenesses. You know, what the eyes see, what the body feels, what the tongue tastes, what our ears hear, and also what our mind stories are creating. You know, we get hooked, and then we think it's fascinating. We get very enthralled in it. And so this practice of watching your breath and then just trying to watch your mind requires, you know, the ability to go, oops, I'm following that thought. I need to let go of that and come back for a moment to the breath until you kind of got that again, and then you gently let go of your attention on the breath, just to try to be with the awareness, the simple awareness between thoughts. So you become more of over time, you get much more familiar with your patterns of mind. You know, like what kinds of things you tend to, you know, some people spend all their time in the past. You know, others seem to spend all their time in the future. You know, some people spend all of their time thinking about food. I don't know why that's familiar to me. You know, but so and you might notice some of these patterns in your mind, and that will give you some information which will be helpful when you're working with your mind, when you're working on your mind to let go of unskillful habits and cultivate skillful habits. But it's not easy, it just, it's not particularly easy to do because we are so habituated to listening. And one of our clues is when we're trying to communicate with others or have a conversation with others, and we realize we're not really listening to the other person. That means we're completely enchanted, perhaps, with the conversation we're having in our head. We're not letting anything else in. So this is the habit we have to be able to break, is to just observe and not get dragged along. So we need a couple of skills. We need mindfulness. Mindfulness is just remembering the object. In this case, you start with the object being the breath, and then after your mind has settled down, then you just focus on awareness, on your own mind. Instead of projecting outward, you're just looking inward. When you lose your mindfulness, you need the mental factor of introspection to be able to alert you to, that you're off topic. So these have to be kind of operating in tandem. They're kind of like the guards on the door of your mind trying to say, remember what you're trying to do in this meditation period, and then notice when you are not doing that, so that you can go back to doing it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Brian?
Yes.
Okay. He teaches meditation. So.
I'm sorry, can you just recap on that?
Okay, so when you start sitting, or whether it's on a cushion or just in a chair, doesn't matter, one thing you want to do is pay attention to your posture. I didn't mention that, but I'm going to now. I'll give me time to remember other things. Okay, and you want to sit up straight, because the purpose of meditation is to become more aware, more alert, not relaxed. In fact, you want to start by being relaxed. It's always hard to do when you're learning something new, but eventually, when you're comfortable with the process, you can just be relaxed, but awake. So, that's where you start, okay? And then you bring your attention to your body, just to kind of make sure you're present here. So you kind of let go of thinking about the other things, you don't have any other chores to do, this is what you're doing right now. And sometimes it's easy to do that by focusing on the body sitting here. That just brings your awareness to the same place as your body. And then if you find that, I'm holding my jaw really tight, or I forget to relax my eyes, all this. So then you kind of just scan your body and kind of breathe to those places so your body relaxes a little more. And then you place your attention, then you say motivation. That's always good too. But then you place your attention on the sensation of the breath going in and out of your nose. That tiny little sensation. You don't worry about how long your in-breaths are or your out-breaths are. You might notice what they are, but you don't. It's no worries. Doesn't matter how long they are. Over time, you might notice that they start to slow down, that they become longer. And then, when you have a few successful minutes of actually not losing the mind on the breath, then you can kind of relax the attention and just observe what's arising in the mind. And so you're using mindfulness. First, you use mindfulness to focus on the breath. And then you change objects, which is just to observe the mind. So again, you need mindfulness to remember the object. Then you need the mental state that's sometimes called introspection. So you need this going on at the same time. It's checking that you're still remembering the object. So that when you're dragged off by some story you've created or some noise perhaps that you hear, it alerts you to that so that you can choose to go back to the object. So beginners do this a lot. They have to keep going back to the object, back to the object, back to the object. They say you reach success when you're able to hold your object for 2 seconds. You've reached the first level. Isn't that encouraging? So this is normal. So if you're sitting there going, blah, 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 all I'm doing is going back, that's how you learn. That's how you start. That's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So the pieces here are sitting in an awake but relaxed posture. Straight back really helps with that. That you ground yourself, your awareness and your body, in the same place. Kind of get rooted to your spot. Then you gently place your attention on the sensation of the breath going through the nose. Some people need to count their breaths, like count up to 10 in order to find their breath again and again, and then just kind of start over at 1. But you do want to let go of that, the counting. And then when you feel like, okay, I'm not losing the attention on the breath, then you quit holding so tightly on the breath. You're still kind of aware of it. It's sort of your anchor, but you want to be focusing on just awareness, just looking inward, not outward. This is why keeping your eyes kind of lowered, your eyelids lowered, helps. It's also helpful to keep them slightly open because the light in the room can help keep you awake. Is that making sense? Yes?
Could you talk a little more about what awareness is?
Awareness is the mind. The definition of mind in Buddhism is clear and knowing. It is that capacity we have. Our awareness is what allows us to know. And that it has, and the clear, that it allows us to know with a sort of a reflective quality. If we don't get in the way, if our ego doesn't get in the way, our self-cherishing, our worries, our fears, if they're not in the way, it just reflects what actually is going on, what it's aware of. And in Buddhism, the eyes, ear, nose, taste, body are also awarenesses. They have, we have physical organs for them. It ceases at the time of death because those organs cease to work. But they are also, there's an awareness that accompanies those organs. And then there's the mental awareness. These are all states of mind. So this awareness is just our capacity to know. Right now, we fill that space, so to speak, with thoughts. And that's the mind's job. The mind's job is to think. That's not the problem. The problem is we make up stuff. We're constantly fabricating stories that we really are just making up out of our habits of mind. If we tend to be a fearful person, maybe we notice all these little things that might be wrong, and then we create some story about it. If we're an anxious person, then we notice all these things we think we see, and then we make a story about that and make ourselves even more anxious. I'm good at that. See my shoulders just inching up the teaching, and then after the teaching's over, all of a sudden they'll go down, So this is, So we just need awareness of these things. But so awareness is really just, so when you're observing your mind, you're becoming aware of the awareness. And eventually, you won't have this dualistic appearance of an observer and the observed. Normally, what we're observing is stuff out here in our stories. So now we're just trying to observe what our awareness is doing. It's kind of hard to describe. when you meditate, if you get into sort of this blissed out, super relaxed state, you are probably not doing it. Because you're not alert anymore. You know, you might be very relaxed, but you're just zoned out. That's not meditation at all. Pleasant experience can be a side effect of meditation, but it's a clear, not a sinking, heavy kind of state of mind, which is what we can do. We can get really attached to just the pleasantness of not interacting in the world. Like, oh, this is nice, no worries, you know. So, what we're trying to do when we're practicing, and meditation's a practice, is just bring our awareness back to the mind and not to the story. And we can do this, you know, if we practice a little bit, you know, when we're in good circumstances, like a quiet place, you know, and we feel awake, we don't feel, you know, we're not falling asleep in our chair, you know, that's a good place. And then, but we can carry the practice out to the day. You know, we can just check in every now and then for a minute or two to just bring our minds back to our awareness so we don't get lost in the storyline. Is this making some sense? Yes.
Why do we do that? You know, have the storyline going all the time and perpetuate the suffering?
Because we don't recognize it as
Don't
suffering.
recognize it.
We think we're planning out how to get happiness. And we're just wrong. It's our ignorance thinking that this self-grasping, this attention to self, this attention to what we want, what we need, is going to get, you know, finally it will result in happiness. And the Buddha said that's actually the opposite. The less we hold on to this all-important self, the more we can relax that grasping. And this is sort of the practice of trying to be aware of what's going on in the mind without grasping onto a storyline. Ooh, I like that story, let's follow that one. You know? We just keep our mind open and whatever, you know. It's like, I think it's a Zen phrase, or maybe it's why do I think I'm gonna remember? Anyway, it's, you know, this idea of all those who arrive are welcomed here, all those who leave are not followed, or something, you know. So it's not that there's, you know, it's not this idea that you should learn how to not think. The mind's function is to think. What we want to get better at is that what it's thinking accurately reflects what is happening. You know, right now we don't even notice enough what's happening.
Most of the time, we don't even know it's happening.
Right.
It's a
Mhm.
habit.
Well, and you know, it's total habit. We're just habituated to this way of thinking. So what we're trying to learn to do is allow a different kind of thinking arise. You know, not a fabricated thing, but something that really does just reflect what's happening. And if we're not living, is this dying or is it just me?
In and out.
Yeah, it's
Okay. That popping in and out really threw me. Okay, so if we're living our lives by constantly just having sort of thinking about what we're going to say next, what we're going to do next, what we did yesterday, what we did last night, or blah, 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 we have no clue what's happening in our life. We're not paying any attention. So practices like mindful eating really help. Just helps you stay focused. So what do you need to eat mindfully? Quiet, attention,
Patience.
yes.
Slowly.
Yes, usually, especially when you're beginning, you kind of have to slow things down. And so there are different little tools you can do to use that, you know. So like you sit and you notice what the food is. Perhaps you even allow your nose to smell it. You know? And perhaps then you let gratitude arise. Isn't it amazing that there's food at all? It's just amazing. You know? There was a time when we could just gather food because we didn't know how to plant crops. That wouldn't work today, would it? We wouldn't be able to feed people. So having gratitude for all the kind farmers from, you know, whenever it started, saving seeds, learning how to cultivate crops, learning, you know, what are the right mixtures of conditions, all of these things can arise when we're sitting there looking at the food. How lucky I am. All these people could, you know, I'm not doing it. So slow, yeah.
What about walking meditation?
Well, I'm not talking about walking at the moment. I'm talking about eating. So stay with me.
Yeah, I got a storyline on it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. We're going back to eating now. So then you might, you know, so you have some gratitude. If you're eating meat, you might think about, oh, someone gave up his life for this, you know, and have appreciation that our world is harsh. You know, we can't live without killing. Vegetarians, you know, the tons of sentient beings being killed in the harvesting of crops. So there's no need to, you know, think arrogantly about our diet. It's just, you know, this is just the reality of our world. And it's not a nice reality. So it's good to bring mindfulness to that. And then you can take a bite. You might have noticed that that's what you're doing. I'm now feeding my face. And then you put the fork down and chew the food. And not follow some story. Just think about the taste. It may be terrible. But you can just kind of go, wow, this person doesn't know how to cook. That's okay. I'm still grateful. I think all food cooked by someone else is great food. I don't, not a cook. You know? So, you know, I have gratitude no matter what's going on, you know, what it tastes like.
But I don't want to go, this is not that other tiramisu.
Right. And then may I not have to eat this food again tomorrow. You know, you don't want to go there. You just bring your awareness to what it tastes like, what it feels like, the texture, what it smells like. And then after you completely chewed the food and swallowed, then you can think about taking another forkful. Yeah.
So if you, when you're eating and you're breaking down the ingredients, that is still
Well, it's
that's
still an
still-
observation. You don't have to really think about it. You can just observe it. Like sweet or pleasant or unpleasant. You don't have to create a big story around it.
No, but you know how when
Does.
they eat, oh, it's turmeric, garlic, is that also going on a story?
It can be, yes. You have to kind of be careful of that. I mean, people who cook well and they know their spices might start a story just about, ooh, I can figure out this recipe, and then you know. It's another thing if you just identify. You know, if you're really familiar, it just may be natural for you to, you know, garlic, you know. But it's, I remember Thich Nhat Hanh, when we would do walking meditation, you know, people would want to know, what's this tree? What's that flower? And he goes, no. Just enjoy or not enjoy. Or just, you know. We don't have to, you know, have the book. It's not that it's bad to know the names of the flowers and things, but it is interrupting being there. And if we're practicing being there, then we're interrupting our practice. You know? Thich Nhat Hanh could go along and name all the trees and all the flowers, and it would not interrupt his mindfulness because he's very skilled at it. It wouldn't be a story. It would just be a name on the observation. But babies, like myself, really have to scale it down in order to know I'm really staying in this present moment. It's extremely restful when you allow yourself to do it and not resist it. The resistance is exhausting. But when you just decide, okay, I'm going to have a quiet time for 10 minutes while I eat my lunch, or 20 minutes, whatever, how long it takes you to eat your lunch. And it will take longer while you're being mindful about it. But then you'll actually taste your lunch. You'll know you've eaten your lunch. When you become full, you'll be more aware of it, all of those different things. And it's very peaceful not to be following all the stories. Especially if they're worries. That's just tiring, just thinking about worries is tiring. You can do the same thing with walking meditation. It's really all it is a choice, it's a decision to say, I'm just going to focus on what I'm doing right now. So if you're a very busy person, then you can say, I'm going to focus on my walking from my door to my car, or from my parking space to a door. And it's good to do that, because then you're usually not run over by anybody, because you're aware of what's around you. If you drive that way, if you mindfully drive, you're less likely to get caught off guard, because you'll be paying good attention to other drivers as well as yourself. And if you're really developing introspection, this ability to tell when you've gotten distracted, you can keep putting yourself back, and then everybody's safer on the road. So is that making sense? So walking meditation, there are many different styles. I learned just a very relaxed style of just walking when I'm walking. So if I'm observing a beautiful tree, I stop walking. If I'm caught by one. It's not that I can't look. You can look the whole time, but then if you go, the magnolia tree's in bloom, you stop. If someone comes up to talk to you, you stop. It makes you very conscious of time. Just because you realize, like when you live at Plum Village, you realize you don't have a lot of time. You can't get to know everybody. You don't have time. If you want to have a quality relationship with someone, you have to spend a little time with them. And you can't do that if you're not allowed to walk and talk at the same time, or walk upstairs and walk downstairs and talk, blah, 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 eat and talk, And so it just narrows your life down a little bit, and it's much easier to keep up. So it's nice every now and then to pick a day when you're not at work, or even if you're at work, if it's just doable for you at work, but to just say, I'm going to have a mindful day, and I'm going to do one thing at a time. And you go from task to task to task. And this way you're practicing being more attentive to what is. So there's a lot more spaciousness to your awareness if you're not filling the gaps with stories. Is that making sense? Mm-hmm. Yes.
What can you do if you do get lost?
You go back to your breath. You use it as an anchor. You just go back to that sensation. If you're walking meditation, then you go back to your feet. Just kind of, oh yeah, that's right, I'm walking. If you're eating, you go back to the plate or the bowl, and bring your awareness back. And sometimes that just takes a minute of kind of putting more attention on your breath, slowing it down. And you just keep doing that. And it takes it takes some commitment to doing it. If you keep letting yourself slide, yeah, go ahead.
A question, when you say be aware, are you considered being aware if you were just sitting and you hear a bird sing, and you just don't go off on the tangent, you just enjoy it for that brief moment and then just sit there and let it go again?
Yeah. Because sound has arisen.
It's
So-
just that you don't want to,
Like, I'm not gonna sit there and go, that was a robin,
right.
and it was red, but it's just like I'm sitting and I'm just sort of,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
I hear a
it's,
bird and I smile and then I just kinda go on and,
yeah, you don't wanna drift to the, to like, then your focus is on the bird. If you're sitting in meditation, and you're trying to
but
focus
you're
on
still
just
gonna
being
be able
aware.
to hear.
You're gonna be
those-
aware of it, it's
Okay.
it's a, it's gonna be one of the inputs that coming in, it's just that you've stepped back a little, and you're, so that you're not, drawn into the
Yeah, you
event.
can just smile and just,
Yeah.
and it's gone and then,
Then you just, you're just observing what's next. Curiosity is good.
because I've never really, I don't think I can meditate, but I notice sometimes in the morning I have my quiet time where I just sort of sit, because that's how I wake up. And it's very peaceful for me.
Yeah.
But then I hear things,
Yeah.
and then I just sort of smile, and then I just kind of go back to letting
Yeah.
nothingness kind of be there for a little bit.
And it's not really nothingness, it's awareness. That's the interesting thing.
Yeah, it's just kind of
We
waking
think
me up. I'm
thinking
just-
is
yeah.
awareness. When thinking is just thoughts, it's conceptions, But there's also just awareness. We can't even have a thought without the awareness. Awareness is our natural state. I mean, that's what that's there. That's what the mind is. It's awareness. We just fill it up with stories. It's okay even to have thoughts. It's all okay. It's just we need to recognize when we're being pulled to the past, to the present, or to what's not happening here.
Thank you.
And everybody can meditate. We must. You couldn't have learned anything if you didn't have the skill of concentration.
Yeah, but when I try, that's when the stories start.
Yeah, because it's boring.
And I said,
Learning to
"Okay."
drive. When you're a
That's
teenager and learning to drive, it's like, oh boy, I want to know this. And then, other things are, I better pass the test. It's not so, intriguing. But we do have the skill. We just haven't decided to choose to use our mind as its object. And so it's a choice. And it's a difficult one, because you don't have a hang of it. Eventually, though, you discover, gee, like you have, there's a lot of peace here. And that's so that helps. Not all of them are like that. Not all meditations will be like that. Some days it's just like pain. Pain's still there. Although you don't think that. You see, that's what we tend to do. We go beyond being aware of the sensation to, how long is that pain going to be there? Is that knee pain? Do I need to check that out? And that's a problem. Okay, so let's give it a go for just a few minutes because, we all panic at the thought of actually doing it. Except those who are already skilled at it. So, if you're sitting on a chair, it's good to have your feet flat. If your feet don't reach the ground, then you get a cushion. Your toes like that. It can be helpful to sit away from the back of the chair, instead of leaning back, and just sit up straight under your own power. It's easier to be alert that way. And then you just rest your hands in your lap. And you try to, relax your shoulders, relax your face. Just kind of scan the body, notice if you're holding any part of it tight or not moving. Just let it relax by bringing just your awareness to it. Gently lower your eyelids to where it lets some light in, but you're not focusing on anything. So feel your body on the chair or the cushion, the sound of the air condition. And then bring your attention to your breath.
sensation of it going in and out of the nose. You might want to take a few deep breaths and then just let it flow in and out naturally. Relax your attention on your breath a little bit and just observe the mind, watching thoughts arise and disintegrating.
gently bring your attention back to your breath, into your body sitting here. Feel happy about being willing to try this out. And just bring your attention back to the class. Now that we're in a much more relaxed state, or totally tight state, depending, introduce yourself to each other. Say hello,
Melissa, sorry.
She's gonna ask if I remember. Right.
I know.
Now, does everybody know someone new?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, introduce me to the new people. Whoever your new people are. Ron?
This is Jill.
Hi, Jill.
Jan Tendron.
Jan, did you meet anybody new? Ron, okay. Chris, did you meet anybody new?
Same as Ron, Jan.
Jan, you've been, all right. Alexandra, did you meet anybody new?
Yeah, Julia.
Julia, all right. Julia, do you know the person behind you?
Michael.
Michael, did you meet anybody new?
Yes,
Who?
I met Jan.
Jan?
I guess I'm
Nothing like bringing attention to the new people, sorry about that. All right, all right, so, Sean, did you meet anybody new?
I met Chad
Chad.
and Jane.
Jane, did you meet anybody new?
Yes, I met Sean and Josephina, and your name ends in an A and it's 3 syllables. Melissa.
Melissa and
I
Mary
knew
Ann.
Mary Ann from before.
Okay, and your name?
Josephina.
Okay, so I should have guessed that from that introduction. Okay, Josephina,
No,
did you
don't
meet
ask me.
anybody
I don't
new?
remember anybody's
Anybody's
name.
name, you're like, yeah, I get that. Let me introduce Ralph.
Ralph, hi.
And this is Melissa.
No, Melissa, I know.
And Lisa? I don't know your name, I'm sorry.
Amina,
Amina. Amina, did you meet anybody new?
yes.
Who was that?
My name's, I'm not very good with names, but it was
This is
Ralph,
Lisa.
Lisa, Josephina, Ian,
Wow,
Chris.
she is good with names.
Sean.
Chan.
Thank you very much. How about over here? Dave, did you meet anybody new?
Met Eric.
Who?
Eric?
Eric.
Sitting right here.
Hi, Eric. Did you meet anybody new?
I did. In fact, I met Dave.
Very good. Very good. Debbie, did you meet anybody new?
Yeah, Jim
Jim
and Eric.
and Eric. Jim, did you meet anybody new?
Yes, I met Eric and Steve.
Steve, welcome back.
This
It's
is Eric
Steve.
and this is Jim.
Thank you very much. Gina, did you meet anybody new?
Eric.
And there we've got Eric over here has been the selected newbie. And Jan over here has been the selected newbie. And Chad and Jane. And Amina. That's a pretty name. I'm not familiar with it. Amina. That doesn't mean anything because, I'll forget Jane. So, all right. We good?
Very good.
Sort of. Brian, do you know anybody new?
Josephina's the newest one for me, but
Very good. All right.
and Jane.
Memories.
Okay. So how'd you do with being quiet for 10 minutes?
I catch myself thinking, oh, I'm quiet. So
That's a very common reaction.
it is.
Yeah. Oh, I'm thinking.
I'm watching my awareness. Yeah, no, this is what we do, that's fine, I mean, that's what we do.
Okay.
So we just kind of go back to like not starting a story, because that's the first sentence of the story, you know? Yep.
Sometimes I get like spurts, like, and then
Calm.
nothing. And then, it goes like that.
Yeah, that's a habit. You know, it's slowly, you know, it's just, and trying not to, you know, make it just go, I can't even do that. Sorry, no talent there. All right.
I found myself forgetting to breathe.
Yes. You know, and, you know, forgetting to breathe, that's easy to do because you're kind of trying to really, okay, I'm not gonna think. So maybe if I don't breathe, that will help. You know, but it's, so we want, this is the part, you know, and this is why it's helpful to do this at home, you know, where you're you know, you're not, you know, you don't feel like people are watching, you know, but it's, so that you can feel relaxed. Don't forget to breathe. Some people start by doing this while they're lying down. This only works if you're not sleep deprived, because you will just fall asleep. But if you're not really good at relaxing the body, then it can be helpful to lie down, sort of what in the corpse pose in yoga or something. But you need to stay awake. You need to be able to think, I'm alert. So maybe you give a little emphasis to the position of the body so that you don't just sink in, or you know, or you just lie on a hard floor. But if you're sleep deprived, that probably won't make any difference. So, and then then the scanning of the body in the beginning is very important to just even working on that first, you know, for several, you know, every morning for a week, you know, where you're just allowing your neck. Like I remember the first time I did this exercise where a circle of people, you know, we held the head of, you know, everybody's head was held by somebody else, you know, kind of like this. Not everybody, not the people holding someone's head. So we took turns. Let me be clear. Okay, so, and it was really hard for me to actually let someone support my head. You know, it's like, I haven't really, no. You know, I can get closer, but I actually don't, you know, let it fall. So you have to, you know, this is one of the things you want to observe about yourself, you know, and if that's the case, then it can help lying down and you just need to build that body memory, you know, that, you know, of relaxing it, you know, noticing, you know, like the nuns community used to come up to me and just push my shoulders down, you know. So it's something we can learn though, to, you know, release those muscles, release the tightness in the forehead, and soften the eyes, and these things. So doing a scanning the body meditation can be very helpful when you're just learning how to sit in a relaxed manner. You know, if you watch a lot of tense TV, whether it's documentaries or, you know, action-packed movies, you might discover that you actually kind of, even if you're kind of lying back, that your whole body is tense, you know? So that sort of doesn't help. You know? That just perpetuates this, holding the body. So it can help to just start with the body scans, do that several times, and then add on, then, you know, try, scan the body, and then bring the attention to the breathing. Practice that. And then when you, yes?
Is there a danger that that watching the rising thoughts and dispelling them becomes the story?
Yes, because you don't need to make any effort. You don't notice. You don't make any effort to dispel them.
Okay.
You're just aware that they're there, and then they're not there.
Okay.
And then they're there and they're not there, and then they're there and they're not there. You just don't follow them. You don't judge them. No need to, you know, you don't worry about what's arisen, you know. You particularly don't want to follow the storyline of, I hate this. You know, that's going to make it hard to like it. Yep.
I I've tried to do this a lot in different settings over the course of years. Sometimes I've come close. This is probably maybe like the best I've done today. I noticed though, there always seems to be words.
Oh, yeah.
There's always words, and I just try to keep them focused on what we were doing, you know, like instead of going off into a whole other.
That's right. Don't worry about the words.
But they're there.
Yes,
Is
of
that-
course, because that's what the mind's job is. It's to think.
And that's all right.
That's fine. It's just that the longer you do it, you know, I don't mean in time, like each session. You know, generally you'd never do more than like 25 minutes of this kind of meditation. And you can do like a 10-minute and then stretch and then come back to it, you know, kind of thing too. So, because it's, you know, you don't want to, and when you're beginning, you don't want to do it that long. But eventually, if you don't follow the words, if you don't fight the words, you resist, you will notice space between the words. This is hard to describe, but it's just, there's going to be awareness in between the thoughts. It's just simply awareness. And that's what we want to, you know, notice. We don't see it now. We just see this constant stream of words. So first, we just need to learn not to listen. You know, not to follow, just still be. Just to be. Okay? But don't worry about the words.
Does it help if you focus on a light, or that defeats the purpose?
Well, the light is used like the breath is used. The nice thing about the breath...
An imaginary light, I mean an inside light.
Yes, you can do that. Usually why the breath is a common choice is we all have it. And it definitely brings the mind inward, you know, towards, you know, yourself. So the breath is useful. Some people use a candle flame, but of course you can't carry that with you. So the nice thing about the breath is you can do this at lunchtime at work, you know, that you can do this when you feel like you're getting rattled. And that just means to actually take a few minutes to bring your mind back to the breath and just be, you know, so we can be calmer. Because this, you know, a large part of this practice is about, you know, like when you find that space between the words, it will help you listen better, communicate better, because you won't be rushing. You'll be present in what's happening, and then you can respond according to your choice, as opposed to being pushed by this habit energy of your thoughts and storylines. We want to break that connection. It's not that they won't arise, it's just that we really don't have to listen. Yeah.
So if I sit for like 35, 40 minutes with this, is a little too maybe overdoing it?
Well, yeah, you have to watch out getting into blissed out state that's really just zoned out, where you're not being aware of awareness, you're just doing nothing.
I lose track of time.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's, you know, it's, you know, that's okay. But it can be helpful to use some sort, you know, like I use the timer on my phone, you know, a meditation bell, so that you, first of all, don't have to worry about the time. So that's really useful when you're starting off and practicing, so that you can't use the excuse of, I was afraid I was late for work. Well, no, you just know what time you have to finish. You set the timer and you let go of that. And then it beeps, and then you set a little, you know, dedication that you hope that this was a benefit, you know, and that it will benefit others, you know, and then you get up and go to the next thing.
I thought it was a good thing to be able to meditate for
It
a long
is.
time.
It is good to be able to meditate for a long time. You've had a lot of practice, so it's hard for me to know whether it's productive or not. You just have to watch out for getting zoned out and just addicted to this feeling
I
of
know what you mean.
peace.
But like that oh, I'm so happy stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's usually a story anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
And you're just feeding craving. You know, it's like, oh, this is nice. Can I just stay here forever? No, you're supposed to train your mind so you can be a nicer person out there.
I stopped using the timer because I noticed when I use the timer that sometimes I detract tracking it more, so.
Oh, yeah, you gotta know,
You know,
that's
like
where
I have a
you,
really good sense of time anyway, so it's like, I don't wanna think about it.
that's a
so
good point.
I'm like, oh, 27 minutes,
Isn't
you
this
know?
supposed to be
Right,
one
and some
day?
people like can be in a very good state and then the bell rings and they're like, move on,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like, too bad, you know, but
I've had it for 15 seconds.
yeah, but, you know, like I told you about my first attempt at, you know, that really serious, don't move at all kind of, you know, Vipassana type session. And I realized that 8 minutes was about my limit before I wanted to scream and move, you know, and it was like very humbling. So, you know, I got past that.
I did Vipassana, but I still don't understand why it's bad to zone out.
Because that's not the point. You know, the point of meditation is to become more aware of your mind, because that's where peace is going to come from. You know, zoning out is like escaping into the TV show or a good book. Yeah, it gives us a break.
How do you know the difference whether you...
Well, this is why you need to practice awareness of the mind, because then you can know the difference. You know, it's like you have to see when you're being seduced into just this pleasurable feeling. You know, it's difficult.
No, I
Yeah,
don't get it.
yeah. But I think it's just, you know, the zoning out is when you are ceasing to learn anything. You're not observing the mind anymore. You're just in a,
It's like a daydream, right?
well, it's like a daydream, only you're not daydreaming.
No.
So it's more just it's allowing the sensation of peace be what the only awareness.
Is there a danger also in the kind of thing we're talking about here, in becoming quite prideful?
Oh, of course.
About
We're always in danger
Wow.
of pride.
Well, I went an hour and a half today.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, sure.
That was really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, you're just turning it into poison, we all do it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it like when we go, oh, I had a really good meditation session today, and then you don't have another one for like 4 months,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
Because you keep going, why isn't it like yesterday? You know, and then, and why isn't it like a month ago? And then 3 months, oh, because you're still thinking about, you know, that's not being aware of awareness, that's just, you know, playing the story.
Yeah.
So yeah, we all our disturbing emotions are capable of arising, you know, because we don't have control of our minds yet. You know, so we just have to be aware that we are now doing it because we want to see how long we can do it.
Exactly.
So you have to watch that. Competitive people really do have to watch those kinds of
I
things.
started playing that game.
Yeah, I mean, this is just what we do. So you have to know yourself. Like, so Chris knows that when if he uses a timer, actually he's more aware of the time. You know, he doesn't relax his attention on the time passing. So you have to know these things about yourself. You try different methods and choose what works best for you. You know, some people, you know, I benefited from the use of the timer so that I wouldn't reduce my 8-minute time zone to 2 minutes, you know, like, oh my God, what am I gonna do after 8 minutes, you know, I'm gonna be in torture, you know. I mean, this is, you know, I didn't start out easily, this was tough for me, you know, so. But we need to find what works for you, you know. Like, you know how they give heart monitors sometimes for people to, you know, when they exercise to make sure they don't go over a certain level? I'm the type that they give to so that you kind of work harder, you know, like at least get your heart rate up, you know, so. Sorry. Okay, but, so we need to know where we are. And then if, you know, so it's like, it's not something to worry about particularly, but if you feel like you're not making actual progress in understanding your mind and being able to have that space between thoughts, if you're not able to bring a calmness out to your day, but you're able to sit, you know, for 35 minutes, you know, in this quiet state, you may be drifting away from the awareness because you're not learning anything that's useful for the rest of the day. You may not be. It may be quite beneficial. So you just have to kind of check. You know?
Because I was the other morning, I was trying to meditate by the beach, and I just couldn't. just let go and just listen to
Yeah.
the ocean, and it was very beneficial.
Yes,
But
I mean,
wasn't.
yeah, and that's, yeah, and sometimes we just need that. And it's like, if you keep falling asleep, you need sleep. You know, go to bed. You know, it's like, you know, some people can't meditate in the morning because they don't allow themselves to get enough sleep. So they have to do it at lunchtime or something, you know, but it's just, and trying to meditate before you go to bed can be self-defeating. Because if you're, you know, if you're trying to become more alert, that can screw up your bedtime, you know, so, you know, you might just wanna do it a little earlier, like set aside 15 minutes before you eat dinner, you know, and that can change your tone of your evening. Yeah?
If a person likes incense, like I do, the little cones burn from 8 to 10 minutes, and the stick burns 20 to 25.
All right, so
That's
those
real-
little incense cones are 8 to 10 minutes?
8 to 10 minutes is the little cone,
And
and
the
about
stick?
20 to 25 is the stick.
Yep.
It's a very natural way of...
Well, if it's a great big, you know, Tibetan. Yeah.
Keep that in mind.
Yeah, yeah, but you know, I mean, for me, you know, it's, you know, all I would do if I used incense was me going, oh my
nice.
God,
No,
get me
nice.
out of this incense.
Oh,
No, I can't
you'll hate
stand incense, because of course I'm a nun, and that's so convenient, but you know. So it's just, but again, it's just learning, you know, being able to just keep, when you're beginning, you will not find that space in between thoughts. You just have to keep trying, you know, keep doing it, and it will come, because they're there. Yeah.
Say too, sometimes if you notice a lot of chatter, that's a good thing, because at least you're noticing it.
Yeah, that's right. Then you know you're being aware of what's
Not
going
being pulled
on,
off.
you know? And then when you're pulled off, and then you go, oh, I've been pulled off, you bring back this, it's a good thing. Because you're honing the skill of the, of introspection, or alertness. So, any other thoughts?
Yeah.
So
Years ago, Geshe-la told us that there's no bad meditation.
No. There really isn't. It's, there's no, you know,
You don't get a grade.
well, and it's just, all you have to do is show up.
Yeah.
You pass if you show up and do it. If you don't do it, then you just didn't meditate. That's not a failed meditation, you just said non-meditation. It didn't happen. So every time you show up, you've succeeded. There's no doubt. And if we get attached to a certain experience, then we won't do it consistently. You know, we'll just do it when it feels right. Oh, I must not, you know, I don't want to meditate today. I mean, you know, no, it's a discipline. So you know, you do it, and if, you know, everything's giving you trouble, you just stick it out. You know, it is nice to, you know, figure out what time you do that you can get up and like it. You know, if you're finding, you know, the last 2 minutes a little, you know, irritating, you might want to make it 2 minutes shorter. Because we want to like it, so that we'll keep doing it. You know, and play around with your, you know, like if you try to sit on a cushion, play around with the heights of the cushions and all that, so your body feels comfortable. I'm much more comfortable on a cushion than a chair for meditation. I just squirm on the chair. I find them terribly uncomfortable. You know, so it's just, it really is just, you just have to find, the advantage of sitting on a cushion, if you're able to do it, is that it gives you some stability that you might not have on a chair. If you're not able to sit on a cushion without pain, then you're not going to be stable there. So it doesn't matter. Like I said, you can also do it lying down, as long as you try to yeah, be diligent about that. All right, we're out of time. We're past time. I've gotten in this bad habit. I'm going to try to change that. Sorry, guys. So let's just read the dedication prayer. So we set a motivation in the beginning of wishing all beings be happy, and also a personal motivation. It's like 240.
Short. Shanti Deva or Sheila?
Shanti Deva.
246.
246. So now what we're trying to do, we've made a positive effort to do something with our mind, which is, in Buddhism, is considered very virtuous. anything that we're trying to do to have be more peaceful and kind and quiet, all those kinds of things. Brings a positive result in the future, so now we want to give it away to other suffering sentient beings. And so that's the idea behind these kinds of dedication prayers. Okay. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be free from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound to be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain, to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, so this is what, the last week in June? Okay, so Tuesday night, our intermediate class on the Rim continues. Thursday night, our Discovering Buddhism series on karma continues. We're sort of in the middle with that. And then next Sunday is the first Sunday of the month. Is that correct, Nicole?
It is, yes.
Okay, so that's our social. It is? Okay. So we just had, so class as usual, but then if you like to bring your own lunch, bring a little bag lunch, then we sit around and chit-chat after class, which is a nice way to get to know each other. And then, that week's July 4th.
Right.
Okay, so next Sunday is July 2nd. So on the 3rd, that Monday at night, we're having a Guru Puja, which is just a long prayer service saying, the praises of having teachers. And we're going to dedicate it to the long, 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 long happy life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, because his birthday's on the 6th. So Monday night is Guru Puja, Tuesday, holiday, Independence from Class Day, no classes on Tuesday. Thursday, we'll continue with Discovering Buddhism on karma. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't want to skip a session, and that's His Holiness's birthday. And what's a better gift for His Holiness is practice. So, we're going to have class. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Yay. Well, thank you very much for your, showing up and participating and all that good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Tendron.